This is Spencer when he was advised by good people to go to a prestigious university. And this is the current Spencer, but he can't say a word about his life at the interview in the past. But he manages to get in and goes through his freshman rite of passage. And when he returns to his room on the bed, the current Spencer tells his childhood dream of distinguishing himself from others by something big. It's his real friend Warren Lipka who he was friends with, but his parents weren't thrilled about it. After all, Warren was a thief, and even here they stole a piece of meat. And after smoking in the car, they chat about philosophical topics. The next morning a woman gives a tour of the National Library and introduces John James Dubin, the author of the first edition of Birds of America. When the woman says it is the most expensive book in the world, Spencer comes up to examine it closer, and in the evening he tells Warren about this wonderful book, priced at $12 million. Spencer tells him that the room didn't look very secure, and there were no guards at all, so Warren no longer shy away from Googling plans for the perfect heist in the library. They are already in full preparation for the robbery by watching robbery movies, drawing building plans, and studying the schedule of employee visits. And they've managed to come up with a plan for all sorts of waste from the building in an emergency situation. Verenas had already found a possible fence sitter from New York who needed to email and make an appointment on Terry's behalf, and also to pay a $500 bail to show his serious intentions. But before that, anyone must have a good night's rest in New York. Warren met with the mediator and received the following contact for communication. A short time later they received a letter back and are invited to the Netherlands with the goods, but Warren wants to fly now and negotiate the cost, and Spencer is no longer confident in his abilities. The boys get together for an evening meal with Warren's father, and Mom calls Dad into the other room, and after yelling she comes back and says they are getting a divorce. Warren was having a hard time with that, so he went out for a drink, and near the bar they decided that Spencer would not fly, but would pay for his half of the ticket to the Netherlands. In the morning he had already brought him to the airport and Warren was on his way. He met with the right people and negotiated a cost of 30 to 40% of the real thing, which is about $4 million. The young thief goes back to Spencer and is going to find more people for such a big deal. He called Eric, whom he hasn't spoken to in over 3 months, and the Real Eric says he agreed simply because he had no one to talk to. Warren was called to the principal's office for truancy and threatened with expulsion, but that didn't stop him from going ahead with his plan. The guys are going to open the storefront and exit through the service door leading to the basement and from there to the side fire exit. Their only big risk is the librarian, because the cameras aren't really cameras, they're motion detectors. They're going to knock out the librarian and jewel the animal book and grab the rest, but Eric leads to the collapse of his imagination because they don't have enough people. At least they need one more who will stand on the first floor to control the situation, or a driver who will pick them up. So they decided to take Chaz, who was already a businessman like his father. And when he heard what they were coming for, he thought they were stoned, but when they asked him to see how easy it was, he decided to agree. The guys should be given aliases. These are Mr. Green, Mr. Black, Mr. Pink, and Mr. Yellow. Our Mr. Green will be in charge of the disguise, Mr. Black for the plan of action, and Mr. Pink should find the shortest route and drive it off as many times as he can to get it to perfection. The day of the robbery is upon us. The guys check for all the tools and then take their exams and bide their time while Pink prepares the car and Yellow buys a stun gun to stun the librarian. Our grandfathers are already in the grim and ready to move out. They arrive at the place. Now they should pretend to be old men and slowly go inside. But when Mr. Alo goes upstairs, he sees that there are 4 instead of 1 librarian in the hall and he goes downstairs to warn everyone that this won't work, but the guys freak out and disperse. And Spencer was only happy about it because life started to play out in a new way in those seconds. Warren asked to stop at the gas station, where it turns out not only did he buy himself a drink, but he called the library. There's nothing tomorrow at 11, they'll try again. All the guys have gone home, and Spencer is already imagining that this may be his last dinner with his family. So he bursts into Spencer's house and declares he doesn't want any more part of it, and Warren can't even change his mind so he just leaves, then takes a run to clear his head. But outside of town he meets a rare bird on the road and wonders if nothing will change his life if he stays adrift and returns to Warren, where they change the plan, in which Spencer will be on guard outside and Eric will go inside with Warren. On the day of the robbery, they already went without a disguise. Warren goes to the librarian's house, and Eric gets a signal. He goes upstairs, but the librarian sits in her seat, and when Eric enters the room Warren attacks her and ties her up. They get the big books and push the smaller ones into the bags in passing. But in the elevator Eric presses the first floor and they ride out into the hall and then into the basement, where they find no exit and decide to go out through the hall. But on the stairs they drop a painting and Eric makes him run for nothing. They run out and Eric jumps in the car with Cheese and they hit Verenus, who gets in the car and immediately vomits. They check their bags and find a seemingly expensive book, but suddenly Cheese asks them to get out of the car because the police will be looking for their van. He will come after them in his car. They dump the stuff and head on, and in the evening the radio tells about an attempted theft by 2 men and 2 accomplices who were in the car. The guys drove to New York and showed the book to an appraiser, but she would only be able to declare the real value of the book with a signature from the head man who would be back tomorrow, so Spencer left her his phone number. But in the car Cheese reminds him what his audio message is when he calls, and that in no way sounds like an elite owner of an expensive book. So Cheese, at gunpoint, forces the boys to go back and get the number. After all the events, they went back to school and went on with their old lives, and Eric was still tormented by that screaming librarian, and after a while, each of the boys did something wrong and the police found them. They were sentenced to 7 years each for committing a high-value book robbery, and as Warren's story revealed, when Spencer brought him to the airport he didn't fly to Amsterdam and just lied to the boys about the value of the books in order to set them a goal of wealth and life change. And the story ended with the guys doing 7 years in federal prison. The books were returned to the university. Eric lives in California, where he is trying to find work as a writer. Cheese lives in Los Angeles and works as a fitness instructor. He also wrote a book about the inner workings of prison. Warren moved to Philadelphia, where he went back to college to study filmmaking. And Spencer stayed in Lexington, where he works as an artist and specializes in drawing birds. Support the channel by subscribing, like and turn on notifications. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.